Different Confederate soldiers and generals every single year, but then we get to Black History Month and you hear about Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King every single year for 12 years, as if they were the only three, Black heroes of the country.
That was a remarkable college student, Taylor Turnage, who took part in what was a really eye-opening conversation for me back in October of 2021 in Jackson, Mississippi, part of our Velshi Across America series. Taylor's point was well made. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks are icons, but there are so many more Black heroes to discuss. And to that end, we want to take time this Black History Month to introduce some of them to you. Today, I want to tell you about Ralph Bunche, who was born in 1904 in Detroit to a father who was a barber, a mother who was an amateur musician. When he was a young man, his parents died, so he and his sisters relocated to Los Angeles with their grandmother, who had been born into slavery. Bunche worked odd jobs to help with family finances, but his brilliance was evident early on. He attended UCLA on a basketball scholarship. He worked as a janitor. He was a valedictorian of his college class, majoring in international relations. Bunche remained in academia, conducted research in decolonization, and earned a PhD in political science. He chaired the political science department at Howard University. During World War II, he worked in wartime intelligence, first at the OSS, then at the U.S. State Department. After the war, Bunche played an integral role in forming the United Nations. The United Nations would become Bunche's home for 25 years. He worked closely with First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt toward the passage of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In 1947, he became involved in mediating the escalating conflict between Arabs and Jews in what was then Palestine, because despite some of what you might hear these days, there was actually a place officially named Palestine until 1948. He was appointed to be chief aide to the lead negotiator. However, in the midst of the negotiations, the lead negotiator was assassinated by terrorists in Jerusalem. Bunche then became the acting lead negotiator, and he worked tirelessly for 11 months. He brokered the armistice agreements between the new nation of Israel and its four neighbors, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, to end the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Renowned for his friendly negotiating style, Bunche nailed down much of the agreement while playing billiards with Arab and Israeli representatives. For his feat, in 1950, he became the first Black person and the first person of color to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Here's video of him accepting the award. He was admired for his unwavering commitment to peace as the only option. In fact, he once said, the best negotiators should be, quote, biased against war and for peace. They should have a bias which would lead them to believe in the essential goodness of their fellow man and that no problem of human relations is insoluble. They should be biased against suspicion, intolerance, hate, religious, and racial bigotry. Despite his declining health in the 1960s, Bunche marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. You can see him here in these pictures. In fact, he's the one wearing the glasses here. You can see him attending the March on Washington right there, right next to Martin Luther King, where Dr. King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. Bunche worked for the United Nations in a number of roles, most notably as the Undersecretary General, but his health issues forced him to resign. He died in 1971 at the age of 67. The peace he worked hard to achieve was always uneasy, and in today's climate, Bunche's achievement is even more impressive. The message he gave in his Nobel lecture after receiving the Peace Prize is as salient now as it was then. There are some in the world who are prematurely resigned to the inevitability of war. Among them are the advocates of the so-called preventive war, who in their resignation to war wish merely to select their own time for initiating it. To suggest that war can prevent war is a base play on words and a despicable form of warmongering. The objective of any who sincerely believe in peace clearly must be to exhaust every honorable recourse in the effort to save the peace. The world has had ample evidence that war begets only conditions which beget further war.